Finally, the race is on tonight to solve a mystery dating back to World War II and collect the riches that may come along with it. Legend has it that a Nazi train filled with gold was lost 7 decades ago. But is it just that? A legend? Here's Keir Simmons.
Beneath the dense forests of Poland's Owl Mountains lies a secret that has baffled historians for decades. A mysterious train said to be filled with Nazi gold, lost in the chaos of World War II. But what if the treasure wasn't just gold and jewels?
Wilbur and Richter think that once the Nazis had parked the train in the trench in the bank, they somehow covered the whole thing up with earth and then removed all traces of the track.
What if it held dark, hidden horrors or deadly secrets buried deep underground? During the final months of World War II, a legend began to take shape in the rugged Owl Mountains of Poland. One that has captured the imagination of historians, treasure hunters, and conspiracy theorists alike. It's the story of the Nazi gold train, a heavily guarded train said to have disappeared deep within unfinished tunnels, possibly carrying a vast fortune of stolen gold, art, and other valuables. But as decades have passed, new evidence suggests that the truth might be far more complex, and potentially far darker, than just a tale of hidden treasure. The story begins with the tunnels themselves. These were not ordinary mines or small passageways carved into the mountains. Experts who have studied the region describe them as massive, unfinished subterranean complexes capable of concealing entire trains. Satellite images and wartime maps have shown suspicious alignments between known tunnel systems and nearby railway lines, hinting at a deliberate design rather than random mining activity. Geophysicist Jan Krzyzewski, who has dedicated decades to researching the area, identified multiple anomalies, caves, shafts, and air vents that strongly indicate the presence of man-made underground spaces rather than natural formations. But why would the Nazis invest so much effort into building such enormous underground tunnels? One theory suggests these spaces were part of a plan to relocate weapons factories out of reach of advancing Allied forces. As the war turned against Germany, moving production underground was a strategic move to protect vital military equipment from air raids. Other historians believe the tunnels could have housed new weapons projects, from long-range missiles and jet fighters to parts of the infamous nuclear program Germany was rumored to be developing. One particular site, known as the Ossówka complex, stands out. It is a fortified underground area with nearby railway access, indicating its possible use as a secret military base or production site. Not far from there is a location called Kosiądz Castle, which the Nazis reportedly intended to convert into a headquarters. A tunnel is believed to link the castle directly to the railway system, raising the possibility that it might have been the final destination for something significant, perhaps even the mysterious gold train. Adding to the intrigue is the involvement of Hitler's personal train, known as the Führersonderzug or Führer's Special Train. This mobile command center was frequently moved across Europe, often stationed in hidden or secure locations to allow Hitler to direct operations remotely. While there's no concrete evidence the Owl Mountains were a hub for these operations, the area's extensive network of tunnels and rail lines makes it a plausible candidate. Despite the significant effort and secrecy invested in these tunnels, the Nazis suddenly abandoned the area as the Soviet army advanced. Before leaving, they destroyed many documents and sealed off access points, deepening the mystery. Why did they leave in such a hurry? And what was hidden underground that they felt needed to be concealed at all costs? Over the years, eyewitness accounts have added to the story. Civilians, miners, and railway workers from the region have recalled seeing a heavily guarded train moving westward in early 1945, only for it to vanish without a trace. Among these witnesses was a retired miner named Tadeusz Sułikowski, who became convinced of the train's existence and location. He spent decades studying maps and testimonies, forming theories that matched later radar scans conducted in the area. In 2015, after years of speculation, Polish authorities allowed investigators to conduct ground-penetrating radar scans at the suspected site. The results were striking. The scans did not just show a large metallic object, but revealed regular, man-made shapes buried underground, shapes consistent with boxcars or train compartments. Further scans uncovered multiple cavities in the rock, suggesting an extensive underground structure. This was the closest the world had come to confirming the legend of the Nazi gold train. However, the findings were not without controversy. Skeptics, including Professor Yenus Maid from the Croft Mining Academy, argued that the radar anomalies could be explained by natural geological formations. Kristofsky and his colleague Cooper, however, disagreed, maintaining that the data pointed to something artificial and significant. Independent analysts reviewing the scans also detected strong electromagnetic fields in the area, lending further weight to the idea that something metallic and man-made might be buried there. Adding to the complexity is a deathbed confession that reportedly prompted the 2015 search. According to unconfirmed reports, a former SS officer admitted knowing the location of a train sealed inside a tunnel near Walbersig, a town close to the suspected sites. While this confession has never been officially verified, it has added credibility to the persistent rumors and encouraged further investigation. Taken individually, any single piece of evidence might be dismissed as coincidence or hearsay. But together, the eyewitness accounts, the radar data, the wartime maps, the sealed tunnels, and the confessions, they paint a compelling picture. It suggests that the Nazi gold train was not only real but might have been hiding something far more significant than just stolen treasures. Traditionally, the story of the Nazi gold train has centered on vast amounts of gold bars, jewels, and priceless artworks looted from occupied countries and persecuted peoples. The Nazis were notorious for systematic theft, particularly from Jewish communities, Roma, and other groups targeted during the Holocaust. The train could have been an attempt to move and hide these valuables from the advancing Allies. However, some researchers believe the cargo might have been more than just wealth. There are persistent theories that the train contained personal effects confiscated from Holocaust victims, items such as clothing, suitcases, wedding rings, gold fillings, and even teeth. These were often cataloged and stored in concentration camps before being transported elsewhere. If true, this means the train could have been carrying evidence of the horrific crimes committed during the war. Military convoys recorded at the time reportedly carried unusual freight, wooden crates, sealed wagons, and containers the size of bodies, all heavily guarded by SS units. It's possible that the Nazi gold train was one such convoy, carrying items the regime wanted hidden forever. Another layer to the mystery is the possibility that the train held scientific or military secrets. In the war's final stages, German scientists were rushing to develop advanced weapons, including nuclear technology and experimental machinery. The tunnels in the Owl Mountains, including the Asufka complex and nearby projects, have long been suspected of being sites for such research. Some believe the train may have transported radioactive materials, weapons components, or sensitive documentation. Soviet forces who moved into the region conducted thorough, though poorly documented, searches. Reports later emerged that crates were removed under armed guard, but the contents remain classified to this day. In this version of events, the Nazi gold train was less a treasure hoard and more a mobile vault of war crimes, military secrets, and stolen human property, something the Nazis desperately wanted to keep out of Allied hands. Some investigators even suggest that the train was never meant to be found, deliberately buried or hidden in tunnels to keep its secrets safe indefinitely. In late September 2015, after growing global attention and speculation, Polish military engineers began carefully surveying the suspected site. They cleared trees, checked for mines and traps, and conducted a surface inspection. News crews and drones documented the process, and the world waited for a dramatic discovery. But no treasure was uncovered, no glittering crates emerged from the earth, and no conclusive proof was revealed. The initial excavations were shallow, digging only about a meter below the surface. Many experts questioned whether this effort was sufficient given the radar evidence pointing to objects much deeper underground. Those most convinced by the evidence pushed for deeper, more extensive excavations. They argued that tons of earth and rockfall could be hiding the train, making it difficult to find without heavy digging. However, the process faced significant challenges. Permits to drill deeper were hard to obtain, costs escalated, and local authorities grew cautious. Meanwhile, the story was transforming the nearby town of Walbridge. Tourism surged as visitors flocked to see the site. Local businesses thrived on the renewed interest, and the legend of the gold train became part of the region's identity. Since then, private groups and volunteers have funded further searches, and more anomalies have been detected underground. But the full truth remains elusive. The tunnels are unstable, many are blocked or flooded, and the mystery endures. The Nazi gold train continues to be more than just a legend. It's a symbol of a dark chapter in history, of war, greed, and secrecy. Whether it holds treasures, horrors, or secrets still buried, the story reminds us how much can be hidden beneath the surface, waiting for someone to uncover it. While the mystery of the Nazi gold train initially focused on the idea of lost wealth, as research progressed, the possibilities expanded into far more disturbing territory. The train's cargo, if it existed, might have included far more than gold bars, jewels, or artworks. New evidence and eyewitness testimonies suggested that the Nazis may have used the train to hide evidence of their worst crimes and even secret military projects. By the later stages of World War II, the Nazi regime was in disarray. The Eastern Front was collapsing under the Soviet advance, and the Western Allies were pushing from France and beyond. The Nazis faced the urgent task of evacuating valuable assets, personnel, and evidence of atrocities from areas about to be liberated. The chaos of these final months created opportunities to conceal, destroy, or smuggle vast amounts of stolen property and classified materials. One crucial element of this story involves the human cost behind the train's cargo. The Nazis systematically looted millions of valuables from persecuted groups, especially Jews, Roma, and other minorities. Personal belongings, everything from jewelry and gold fillings to clothing and suitcases, were stripped from prisoners at concentration camps. These items were catalogued and stored, often alongside other spoils of war. Many historians now believe that trains, convoys, and underground caches were used to move these goods to safer locations, as the Allies closed in. Eyewitnesses from the period described convoys transporting not only valuables, but also unusual freight. Military convoys were reported to carry wooden crates and sealed wagons of mysterious contents, sometimes described as body-sized containers. These shipments were guarded by SS units, underlining their importance and secrecy. If the Nazi gold train was part of these convoys, it could have been carrying not just treasure but physical evidence of Nazi war crimes. Evidence the regime wanted to hide or destroy to avoid accountability. In addition to looted goods, there is speculation that the train may have transported materials related to advanced weapons programs. By 1945, German scientists were rushing to develop cutting-edge military technology, including rocket weapons, jet aircraft, and nuclear technology. The Nazis invested heavily in secret research facilities, many located underground to protect them from Allied bombing raids. The Owl Mountains region, where the gold train is believed to have been hidden, was home to several large-scale underground projects, such as the Asuvka complex. These tunnels and bunkers were reportedly designed to house weapons production or testing facilities. Some historians argue that the train might have carried radioactive materials, experimental machinery, or sensitive documents relating to these programs. This possibility lends the mystery an additional layer of urgency, as it suggests that what was hidden underground might have had the potential to change the course of the war or its aftermath. When Soviet forces entered the region in 1945, they conducted extensive searches of the tunnels. However, the details of these operations remain unclear, and official Soviet records are scarce or classified. Reports later emerged that Soviet scientists removed crates under armed guard, but the contents of these shipments have never been made public. This has further fueled speculation about secret cargo with long-lasting implications. The Nazi gold train, therefore, becomes more than just a treasure hunt. It might represent a mobile vault of horror, a container for the darkest legacies of the Third Reich. Items on board could include stolen wealth, the personal effects of millions of victims, experimental weapons parts, and documentation that might have exposed war crimes or advanced military secrets. In 2015, after years of speculation and research, the Polish military took the unusual step of investigating the site near Walbrzych, believed to be the train's hiding place. They conducted ground-penetrating radar scans and began clearing the forest to allow excavation. The world's media watched closely, hoping for a breakthrough in the decades-old mystery. However, despite the buzz and excitement, the initial excavation yielded no spectacular discoveries. This outcome sparked debate among experts and enthusiasts. The excavation was shallow, only about a meter deep, far less than many believed necessary based on radar data. Critics argued that the authorities had not done enough to explore the underground cavities and suspected tunnels fully. Supporters of the train's existence pointed out that tons of debris and natural earth movement over the decades could have buried the train deeper than the initial dig reached. The local community, meanwhile, found itself caught in the middle of this unfolding drama. The small town near the site saw a sharp rise in tourism after news of the gold train search spread worldwide. Hotels filled up, businesses thrived, and the legend became an economic boost. Local restaurants created dishes and drinks themed around the gold train, and souvenirs became popular. Even skeptics began to acknowledge that the legend had value, not just as a historical mystery but as a cultural phenomenon and source of income. Despite the lack of concrete findings from the first excavation, private groups and independent researchers continued the search. In 2016, volunteer-funded digs uncovered new anomalies beneath the surface, shafts, cavities, and irregular structures that again suggested man-made tunnels. These discoveries reignited public interest but also raised more questions. The search became increasingly difficult as permits for deeper drilling were harder to obtain and costs spiraled. By 2017, new radar scans revealed 7 more underground cavities near the suspected train location. The most persistent and determined researchers, like Poda Koper, prepared for more extensive drilling despite bureaucratic and financial obstacles. Some team members, such as Kristofsky, left due to frustrations with limited access and opposition from authorities. Nevertheless, the belief in the train's existence remains strong among many experts and enthusiasts. The tunnels in the Owl Mountains are a labyrinth, with many sealed or collapsed entrances, blocked shafts, and flooded sections. Some shafts extend more than 50 meters underground, making exploration dangerous and technically challenging. Past efforts to map the entire network have been hampered by these conditions and by the lack of comprehensive documentation from the wartime period. Whether the train still lies exactly where radar scans placed it, waiting to be uncovered beneath layers of earth and rubble, or whether it was moved deeper underground or removed entirely, remains unknown. No one has yet received permission to drill far enough to reach the objects suggested by the radar. This leaves the story tantalizingly open, an unresolved riddle amid the ruins of history. The debate surrounding the Nazi gold train exemplifies a broader tension between historical curiosity and practical challenges. On one hand, the prospect of uncovering lost artifacts, war crimes evidence, or secret weapons intrigues historians and treasure hunters alike. On the other hand, the technical difficulty, cost, and political sensitivity of deep excavation make such projects difficult to pursue with sustained commitment. The legend also raises questions about how we remember and engage with dark chapters of history. If the train's contents include personal belongings stolen from Holocaust victims or evidence of atrocities, should the site become a place of learning and remembrance? Could it serve as a museum or memorial, helping future generations understand the horrors of the past to prevent their repetition? Or would such a site risk becoming a destination for morbid curiosity and dark tourism, where the focus shifts from respectful education to sensationalism. The local authorities and governments have struggled to find a balance between encouraging exploration and protecting the site from exploitation. At the same time, the story has undeniably changed the identity of the region, bringing worldwide attention and a surge in visitors. Tourism numbers reportedly increased by over 40% after the story went public, and economic benefits have motivated some officials to promote the legend, even without definitive proof. Interestingly, the ongoing search for the Nazi gold train is just one chapter in a larger story of Poland's layered history. In 2019, while working on renovations at a palace near the city of Wrocław, Koda Koper discovered a series of priceless 16th century wall paintings hidden behind a false wall. Though unrelated to the train, this find serves as a reminder that the country still holds many buried secrets waiting to be. For many, the tunnels in the Owl Mountains symbolize the unresolved mysteries of World War II, as well as the difficulties in confronting the legacies of the past. Some tunnels remain sealed, either by Nazi demolition teams retreating from the war, Soviet forces occupying the region afterward, or later Polish authorities seeking to prevent looting and trespassing. What is clear is that the Nazi gold train story fits too neatly into the historical gaps left by the chaos of the war's end, the scale of industrial looting, and the secretive Nazi infrastructure. It is a narrative that has refused to die because it connects to so many elements of the past that remain unresolved and deeply troubling. Whether the train contains treasure, war crimes evidence, advanced weapons parts, or simply an empty shell buried beneath the Owl Mountains, it continues to captivate the imagination. It reminds us of the scale of human tragedy and the lengths to which regimes will go to hide their secrets. The story of the Nazi gold train does not end with speculation and radar scans. It has also deeply affected the communities around the Owl Mountains and sparked broader discussions about history, memory, and the ethics of exploration. As the mystery unfolded, it became clear that the search was not only about uncovering hidden treasure or forgotten technology, but also about how societies deal with the legacies of dark pasts. The town of Wałbrzych and the surrounding area have become a focal point for both hope and controversy. Before the legend gained international attention, this region was relatively quiet, with its history often overshadowed by larger, more prominent World War II sites. But as news spread about the possibility of a hidden Nazi train buried beneath the mountains, the area transformed almost overnight. Tourism surged, visitors came from around the world, drawn by the mystery and the allure of uncovering lost riches or secrets. Local businesses adapted quickly, creating themed tours, souvenirs, and special events. Hotels filled up, and restaurants named dishes after the gold train or the tunnels. This influx brought economic benefits, but it also raised questions about the commodification of tragedy and history. Some local officials welcomed the attention and revenue, seeing it as a way to revive the region and preserve its historical significance. Others worried about the potential for exploitation or sensationalism, fearing that the focus on treasure hunting might overshadow the more serious aspects of the area's history, including the suffering caused by the Nazis. The idea of dark tourism has become a major part of the conversation. Dark tourism refers to visiting sites associated with death, tragedy, or suffering. These can include former concentration camps, battlegrounds, or places of disaster. While such tourism can raise awareness and foster education, it can also risk trivializing or commercializing profound human suffering if not handled carefully. In the case of the Nazi gold train, this tension is particularly sharp. On one hand, the possibility of uncovering a sealed train full of Nazi loot and secrets is undeniably fascinating and carries enormous historical value. On the other hand, the cargo could include deeply personal items stolen from Holocaust victims, or evidence of war crimes that demand respectful remembrance rather than spectacle. The region's complex history means that any discovery would likely require careful management to ensure that it serves as a site of education and reflection rather than mere curiosity. Some historians and cultural experts argue that any excavation should be paired with efforts to document, preserve, and interpret the finds in ways that honor the victims and explain the broader context of Nazi crimes. As interest in the gold train grew, so did the number of amateur explorers, treasure hunters, and conspiracy theorists visiting the area. This created challenges for local authorities, who had to balance public safety with managing the site and protecting sensitive historical locations. Unauthorized digging and trespassing became concerns, leading to increased regulation and sometimes friction between locals and visitors. At the same time, the story inspired a new generation of researchers, historians, and scientists. Advances in technology, such as ground-penetrating radar, electromagnetic scanning, and 3D mapping, have made it possible to explore underground structures in ways previously unimaginable. These tools have been key in identifying anomalies and guiding excavation efforts. Yet, even with these technologies, the task remains daunting. The tunnels and shafts beneath the Owl Mountains are vast and often unstable. Many entrances have been deliberately sealed or destroyed over the years, whether by retreating Nazis trying to hide their tracks, Soviet forces securing captured sites, or Polish authorities attempting to prevent looting and maintain safety. The geology of the region complicates matters further. The area is prone to landslides, flooding, and other natural processes that have altered the landscape significantly since the 1940s. Layers of earth and debris may have buried the train deeply, requiring complex and costly excavation work to reach any potential find. Funding has been a persistent obstacle. While initial investigations receive some state support, much of the ongoing research and excavation has relied on private donations, volunteer efforts, and crowdfunding campaigns. These initiatives show the dedication of many individuals fascinated by the story, but also highlight the limits of official involvement in such a controversial and costly project. The involvement of private groups has sparked debates about ownership and control of any discoveries. If the train or its cargo is found, questions arise about who has the right to claim, study, or display the materials. Would the government take custody, or would private sponsors seek to benefit? What role should international bodies or Holocaust remembrance organizations have in overseeing the process? There is also the question of how the discovery might affect historical narratives. For decades, the Nazi gold train has been a part of popular folklore and legend. A confirmed find could rewrite certain aspects of local and wartime history, shedding light on previously unknown operations or hidden crimes. At the same time, it risks fueling conspiracy theories or distorted versions of the past if not presented responsibly. The deathbed confession of a former SS officer adds another layer of intrigue to the story. Though unconfirmed, the confession reportedly revealed knowledge of a sealed train hidden in a tunnel near Walbersig. This account sparked renewed searches and lent credibility to the radar findings, but it also raised ethical questions about using such testimony in historical research. Without corroborating evidence, confessions like these remain controversial, yet they often shape public perception. Meanwhile, debates among experts continue. Some geophysicists and archaeologists argue that the anomalies detected by radar could be natural formations or remnants of old mining activities rather than a train. Skeptics caution against jumping to conclusions based on incomplete data or the desire for sensational discoveries. Nonetheless, proponents like Porta Cooper and Kristofsky remain convinced. Their extensive research, combining wartime maps, satellite imagery, eyewitness accounts, and scientific scans, builds a compelling case for something significantly hidden underground. They argue that the overlapping evidence, tunnels, suspicious terrain, electromagnetic anomalies, and historical documentation cannot be easily dismissed. The history of the Nazi regime's underground infrastructure is well documented. From forced labor camps to weapons factories, the Nazis invested heavily in subterranean construction to protect critical assets from bombing raids. The Owl Mountains were an ideal location for these efforts due to their natural protection and relative isolation. Projects like the Osufka complex demonstrate the scale and complexity of these operations. These vast tunnel networks were designed to accommodate heavy machinery, rail lines, and storage facilities, sometimes extending kilometers underground. They were built with concrete reinforcements and hidden entrances to secure Nazi projects from Allied attacks. The possibility that the gold train was part of this network adds weight to the theory that it carried more than just gold and valuables. It might have been a mobile vault transporting weapons, technology, or documents related to advanced military programs. The train may have also served as a secure escape route or command center, especially considering the existence of Hitler's personal train, the Führersonderzug, which frequently operated from hidden locations across Europe. If the Nazis intended the train to be never found, burying it deep underground and sealing tunnels would have been an effective strategy. The hurried retreat from the region in 1945, coupled with the destruction of documentation and the sealing of access points, suggests a deliberate effort to hide something valuable or dangerous. The region's Nazi past is deeply layered with intentional mystery, misinformation, and secrecy. Wartime chaos, post-war Soviet occupation, and later Cold War politics all contributed to the obscuring of facts. Many records were lost or classified, and many tunnels remain inaccessible or poorly mapped. This combination of factors creates a challenging environment for historians and explorers. The truth about the Nazi gold train may lie buried beneath decades of physical and political layers, waiting for the right conditions and resources to be uncovered. At its core, the Nazi gold train story is about more than treasure. It is a reminder of the human stories behind the war, of the victims whose belongings were stolen, the forced laborers who built the tunnels, and the soldiers and civilians caught in the turmoil. It is a reflection on how history is recorded, remembered, and sometimes hidden.